Chiro here from Umbra Games with a review of Middle-earth: Shadow of War, available on Xbox One and PC, as well as PS4, which was played on for this review. Shadow of War is the 2017 sequel to 2014's Shadow of Mordor, the story of a ranger named Talion who seeks revenge on the forces of Sauron after his family and he are murdered. Talion was resurrected by the wrathful spirit of Elf Lord Celebrimbor, who not only helps keep Talion alive, but also imbues him with several wraith abilities. At the end of Shadow of Mordor, Celebrimbor decides he wants to forge a new ring of power to help combat Sauron. Thus we're brought to the opening of Shadow of War, where the duo, I guess they're still called, have made it to Mount Doom and craft a new ring, because, you know, it always works out so well. Shortly thereafter, Shelob, somehow seen in the form of a not ugly spider, but in fact attractive female, steals the ring and manipulates Talion. I believe these games are taking place between the times of The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and obviously some creative liberties are taken with the plot, meaning this definitely didn't come from canon. At its heart, Shadow of War is a third-person open-world mission progression game, leaning heavily on a very forgiving stealth system and a combat system similar to the Batman Arkham series. One attack button, one counterattack button, and one dodge button. In the normal difficulty mode, you'll see icons pop up above enemies' heads when they're preparing to attack to notify you that you should counter. This works pretty well about 90% of the time, but an occasional encounter will have enemies off-screen that can initiate attacks and you won't see it coming. The camera tends to get a little close to the action, as blocked by the field of view at times, providing a minimal amount of frustration. Talion also packs additional abilities like a phantom elven bow and arrows, executions, and draining attacks. Now the first thing you'll begin to notice is Talion's mobility, reaching almost superhero status. He can quickly vault up walls as he's scaling them, there's no fall damage so you can plummet from any height safely, and there's a fun double jump that allows you to switch directions as you do so. You run by pressing the X button, and you can use the replenishing focus to sprint even faster by clicking the left stick too. You can eventually summon a variety of mounts to speed up travel as well, and there are 3 towers that can be purified in every area to enable fast travel between them. Most of the climbing and collisions are pretty well done with a few exceptions, namely planks and ropes attached to the sides of the roofs of buildings. A smooth transition between them would have been really great, and I often found myself getting stuck on a non-existent ledge. Talion gains experience from completing quests, gathering collectibles, and participating in various events. Experience raises Talion's base stats and also awards a skill point for every level. Skill points can also be gained through other activities independently of character levels as well. Skill points can be used to purchase a variety of skills and enhancements of those skills, up to 3, but only 1 can be active on each skill at a time. Skills aid in combat, provide more stealth actions, change ranged attacks, and provide many other functions. After I'd unlocked every skill, I'd lost a little zeal in further skill point collection, as with most of my enhancements, only 1 and very rarely 2 were attractive to my playstyle, so I'd just dump them into whatever I didn't have in order from top to bottom. Talion has several pieces of gear you can equip, including a sword that boosts melee damage, a broken sword for stealth damage, a bow for range damage, armor for health bonus, a cloak for quieter stealth, and a ring which increases max focus. Gear has colored rarity from white to purple. The rare gear have criteria that once you perform an action can unlock upgrades, boosting various skills, stats, or resistances. Shadow of War also has a gem system similar to the mechanic in Diablo 3. These gems can be slotted in an equipment slot once they've been paid to be opened, and they come in 3 varieties: red that boosts attack power, white that boosts wealth, and green that boosts life. There are multiple strengths of these gems, and 3 of a lower tier can be combined to make one of a higher tier. Didn't start using these until pretty close to the end of the game and got through most of the content without any issue. Now, there are multiple quest lines in this game that each present a different facet and struggle in the war with Mordor. There's a world map from which you can fast travel to the 5 different regions in this game, and each quest line will take you back and forth between them. You begin these missions by reaching the waypoint that can easily be marked on the map and will provide guidance. The story missions flesh out the plot quite a bit, but the actions you take are pretty standard fare for the genre. Like Assassin's Creed games, there are often sub-objectives to complete for bonus experience and money. What elevates Shadow of War, though, is advancing what they call the Nemesis system that was created in Shadow of Mordor. Orc captains on the battlefields are randomly generated with a name, class, appearance, voice, and a combination of armor and weapons. This system is so smooth and well done that the diversity between them seems nearly impossible, but they're more than just pretty faces. Each Orc captain also has a variety of strengths and weaknesses that can be discovered and exploited in combat. These captains also have character levels, and if they best you in combat, will increase in strength and gain a level to help them further in the next confrontation. Celebrimbor gives Talion the ability to dominate the denizens of Mordor, including these captains, once their life has been depleted enough. Talion can then use the orcs as bodyguards, order them to fight other orcs, and infiltrate the higher-ups. And the system also adds with it quests and confrontations that you'll probably spend more time with than the actual campaign missions themselves. Every command you issue of orcs to take on an enemy one creates an event you can participate in or observe. Whichever orc wins gains levels. These quests will conclude on their own if left alone too long. Each region has a fortress where an overlord orc resides. He has several war chiefs as well. If you attack the force without doing the preparations, the war chiefs will grant more defenses and make your assault more difficult. The orcs you recruit can be promoted in your army as assault leaders, and you can purchase upgrades for them to take into battle. The assault on the fortresses are actually quite a sight, as your troops rush to take the walls and you sit in capture points before moving on to combat with the overlord. Now, I'm not quite sure what all factors into the success of your troops necessarily, as the strongholds seem to have somewhat arbitrary levels. Not to mention, when it's your turn to defend your taken fort from an opposition force, there's really not a whole lot of strategy that can be employed. Developer Monolith took this mechanic though and made an asynchronous multiplayer mode where you can assault copies of players' online fortresses, and they're yours, to gain currency to purchase new equipment as well as high-level orc troops in the form of loot boxes. Which, as you probably know if you have an ear to the gaming community, raised quite a stink when loot boxes for this game were publicized. One of the best ways to defend your fort and assault others is by obtaining super powerful orcs. The way you raise their level is to send them to attack the other captains like I mentioned, or you can send them to the fighting pits and if they win they gain levels. But if you want to skip all that, you can pay real money for instant epic and legendary followers, but they only go up to whatever character level you have Talion at. Now, I tried to read up on all the microtransactions a bit before I jumped into this game because I'm not really interested in giving a company money to keep playing the game I already paid for. Most people seem to point to the fact that this grinding, orc raising, and raiding activity was limited to endgame and not required to complete the game itself. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Now, I'll keep this as spoiler-free as possible, but I personally had enough fortress raiding when I did the activity 4 times for the regions required for the main campaign. After you complete what seems to be the story arc of the game, though, a 4th act opens, and you're charged with running around to each of the forts you already have and defend them from attackers. There are 10 stages to this act, and each stage gets increasingly difficult. But remember, when you went through the area and captured the fort for the first time and you assigned orcs to defend it, you were low level. So all of your defensive orcs are going to be in their teens and 20s, while the invading army comes in their 30s and 40s. Bosses start showing up in the upper 40s as well. So unless you want to spend time building up your armies with a ridiculous number of mundane tasks in order to see a 3-minute non-canon cutscene trying to tie this game into Lord of the Rings proper, the developer is here to offer you a way through it. Pay them money. I did the first couple of stages and then I lost a fort. And like 6 warlord quests popped up, and then I had to re-attack the fort to drive out the orc that beat me. I honestly shut off the game and just went and watched the ending on YouTube. Now, Monolith did end up making the 5 environments fairly diverse aesthetically, somehow making a believable Mordor with some color this time around, even though the content type within each region remains fairly constant. The final bits of content in Shadow of War include a few collectible types, like tons of Gondorian artifacts, little weird minigames to piece together Shelob's memories, and finding hidden elvish words by shifting into the Wraith world and then bringing the word into focus. Then you take these words and fit them into a sort of Mad Lib poem in order to open a door. Now, I seem to recall some combat type quests in Shadow of Mordor where Talion was required to build up a certain hit streak and various other short tasks. In Shadow of War, these have been shifted to Celebrimbor quests, taking place in flashbacks of when he was alive and fighting orc minions himself. Abilities you have gained through the main game are available in those quests and actually required to access them. There are usually 1 objective and 2 sub-objectives for completing these little quests, and the first will give a skill point, the second objective awards cash, and the third will award a gem. Once you've opened and discovered one of these quests and completed it, it becomes available in the barrows of each region, where you can then fast travel to it and try it again if you didn't get all 3 objectives complete. So overall, I'm a bit split. Shadow of War has a lot of what we do want to see in a sequel. On the other hand, they've completely botched the franchise with this microtransactions, and it really left a bad taste in my mouth. I almost kind of hope we never see this series again. I do joke about this game being an Assassin's Creed game in Middle-earth, but I did enjoy the melee combat here a bit more, and the stealth is way more forgiving, which for people like me, where it's not my favorite mechanic, works out pretty well. The game is beautiful, has quite a bit of content, even though it gets repetitive fairly fast. The orc design is wonderful. Talion's growth is palpable, and skills provide quite a bit of diversity in gameplay, while the non-canon story has some fun twists, but the attempted fold into canon continually just doesn't make sense. Rated on the open world mission procedural criteria, subtracting some for the underhanded move of sparing us a repetitive grind for the cost of additional real money, Middle-earth Shadow of War lands at a 49 out of 100, with 50 being an average game on my true 1 to 100 scale. This is Jiro for Umbra Games. Thanks for watching. As always, remember where that subscribe button is, hit it for notifications of new videos, or follow me on Twitter @Umbra Games.